Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. Today we are talking about weight gain, weight loss, hormonal imbalance, and how these are connected to emotional weight that you don't even know that you're carrying. And this, I had no, I had no intention to speak about this today. I was going to talk about something completely different, except that I bumped into someone quite unexpectedly. And this person, I didn't know her. I didn't know her, but she follows me here online and she came to introduce herself. And it was so nice to meet her. And we were in a group and she was talking about how, um, despite everything she was trying, so she's been exercising, she's been like trying to diet or cut calories, and yet she can't shift the weight. Now she's in her 40s, just like me, and some of you are. And some of the other ladies were like, oh, it's just our age. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. But I want to give you guys a deeper look on this because the conversation that she and I had, let's call this lady, she was such a sweet lady. Let's call her Mariam. Okay, we're going to call her Mariam. That's obviously not her real name. And Mariam and I had this very interesting conversation because as we were speaking, because I was explaining to her how by the time we get into our 40s, these hormonal imbalances, and sometimes even earlier, these hormonal imbalances start to catch up with us for several reasons. And the biggest reason is chronic stress. And I want to explain to you what I explained to her, because when I explained it to her this particular way, so much shifted for her. Like you could see she was having these breakthroughs, right? When I say it's chronic stress, you need to understand what's happening in your body when you have chronic stress. And I'm also speaking as someone who had an autoimmune disease that had been sparked by chronic stress. And this was when I was 25 years old. So although I'm saying this can happen later on in life, that's not true. For some people, happens earlier in life. There's a cumulative effect. The things that you are going through, the emotional stresses that you are going through are having a cumulative effect on your mind and on your emotions, but most of all on your body. Because I want you to understand what you're feeling, the emotional stress that you're feeling doesn't just live in your mind. It doesn't just live in, your thought patterns. It actually has a physical impact on your body. And I explained it to her, and it was interesting because as we were talking, as we were discussing, she started to open up about some really difficult things that she's been going through. And I know a lot of you are going through similar things in her marriage, things with her children. And what's happened is this lady, Mariam, obviously not her real name, Mariam has been living where every single day she's in such hypervigilance and she's in such a state of stress that Mariam's body is always in fight or flight. Because remember something, your body cannot be in two states at once. You cannot be in rest and digest mode, which is healing mode, and fight or flight at the same time. Now, our bodies are designed to be in fight or flight sometimes. Fight or flight is a survival instinct. It's really important. If you didn't have fight or flight activated and there was a true emergency in your life, that would be a big problem. The whole reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed fight or flight in our body is so in a truly stressful situation, we can defend ourselves. We can either run away, flight, or we can fight. We can stay there and fight, right? And this is why when you're stressed, you can't even sleep properly. You're overthinking. You're just like, you feel exhausted on the one hand, but on the other hand, you also just feel, oh, like, oh my God, I have to keep moving. Can't even focus, can't even concentrate. I'm going to scroll on this. I'm going to do this. What about that? You're all over the place. So in the state, your body is not designed to be in the state over a long period. Your body is designed to be in it just in short bursts when something stressful happens. However, like most women, Mariam, and like I used to be, and like you might be, Mariam had been experiencing so much stress in her life with her children, with her in-laws, with her own parents, her emotionally immature parents, with her husband who is not in his masculine and kind of leaves her to be in her masculine. Just understand that when you're in your masculine energetically, it doesn't feel great. Mentally, it doesn't feel great. But being in your masculine as a woman most of the time, because the man in your life is not stepping up, takes a toll. Your body, literally, the hormones go out of whack. The hormones go out of whack because now your body's like, we're trying to be more of a man. And like I've spoken about before, women don't go into their masculine because they want to be the leader and they want to be the Amir of the house. I have worked with thousands and thousands of women over the years. So I know they go into their masculine because the man in their life has his own unhealed trauma. He has his own emotional immaturity, and he's not stepping up to the plate. And she's kind of forced to be in that position, as Mariam was, right? Is rather, because this conversation happened this morning. And so you have this chronic stress, and your body is in fight or flight all the time, which means majority of the time your body is not in rest and digest. So your body can only be in one state. It can either be in fight or flight, or it can be in rest and digest. And when you're in rest and digest, and you want to be majority of the time in rest and digest, your body gets to calm down. Your body gets to actually heal. So your body is a self-healing mechanism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created every organ, every endocrine, every function in your body wants to be in equilibrium. Your body wants to be well. Your body wants to support you. But when you are chronically stressed because of emotional overwhelm, because like you're stressed here and you're stressed there and you're stressed there and you got to take care of this, your body has now spent years and years and years where it's majority of the time in fight or flight and minimum of the time in rest and digest. And this catches up. And as much as you say, yeah, it's our age and you're going into your 40s, so this is normal, it is not normal. It has been normalized. But the reason at this age, yes, things start to change. No doubt, things start to change in your body. But how much of it is influenced by your environment? How much of it is influenced by the fact that you, like Mariam, have been in chronic stress and been forced into your masculine for so many years that now your body is hormonally and physically seeing the effect of being chronically in fight or flight. And I explained to Mariam, and I think you'll find this very interesting too, is that when your body is in fight or flight all the time like that, your cortisol levels become very high. And when your cortisol levels are chronically high like that, your body then believes that it is in a life or death situation. Because if fight or flight is being activated all the time, your body's like, oh my God, something really bad must be happening. We must be in a war, or we must be in a famine. May Allah grant everyone goodness. And so your body, which is so intelligent, says, okay, we're in a war, we're in a famine, we got to move accordingly. And so your body, being the intelligent mechanism that it is, because you are constantly through your emotional overwhelm and through your stress, showing your body that things are bad right now. Things are bad. And so your body is so smart. Your body says, okay, not a good situation, but don't worry. I got you. I got Mariam. I got Zaahida. I got Shanaz. So what I'm going to do is, I see these cortisol levels are elevated all the time. I am going to hold on to fat reserves. And this is especially true in women, right? Women are really built for survival, mashallah. So your body holds on to fat, holds on to anything. Your body, as part of its survival mechanism, says, we're going to hold on to every food because it's a war, it's a famine. What if more is not coming? And your body also keeps you in hypervigilance of like, yeah, you got to sleep with one eye open. And this is why so many of the ladies have sleep disruptions. And despite being absolutely exhausted and burnt out, you can't fall asleep properly, or your sleep is interrupted. Or you're tired at the wrong times of the day, and when it's time to sleep at night, you just find yourself scrolling, overthinking, all of these things. I want to tell you, this is not your fault in a sense, right? Because society and our community, our Muslim Indian community especially, has been set up in such a way that women are expected to hold the brunt of everything and pick up the slack of everything, everyone else. Except that our bodies are not designed to deal with that much of stress. And so the only way the body knows how to cope is by holding on to these fat reserves, shifting around you. And the stress literally eats up many of the important hormones that you need, which brings on menopause faster sometimes. And so again, despite exercising, cutting back on foods, you'll find your body holding on to this weight, which Mariam was experiencing. And as I was explaining this to Mariam, I also said to her, the real key here, and a lot of my clients find this, is being able to regulate your nervous system and setting the right boundaries in your life. The combination of that, so many of my clients have come back and told me, through my HYE program, for instance, which is a nervous system regulation program where I designed that after years and years of seeing women struggle. I designed that program where you have somatic tools that regulate your nervous system through using the divine names of Allah, through using the 99 names. And so I've had like one client, a South African Muslimah, maybe some of you follow her. She did my HYE program and she said how she had chronic migraines for years. I think it was 5 years or something like that. And doctors diagnosed her with fibromyalgia or something like that. And after she did, as she was doing HYE, within a couple of sessions of HYE, and HYE is a self-study program, within a couple of sessions of it, she had this huge emotional release and her migraines, alhamdulillah, they healed. Another client she had this chronic back issue, I think it was, or a pain issue. She had been to specialists, they'd done scans, couldn't find anything, but the fact is she was living in pain, chronic pain. And she then did HYE, and what do you think happened? She had the one day she was listening to the one module and she cried a lot. It was a huge emotional release because remember, you guys, are the stress that you're experiencing, there's an emotional component. And you're carrying these emotions, and your body doesn't feel safe enough because it's in chronic stress. Cortisol levels are elevated. It's in chronic stress, and you're holding on to these emotions because your body is like, it's not safe enough to release it. I mean, if you're in the middle of a war, if you're in the middle of a battle zone, your body is not going to allow you to feel safe enough to just cry and let it all out. Your body's going to be like, no, 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 we're going to wait till we're in a safe place. And so what HYE did for these clients is it allowed them to come into a safe zone in their bodies. It showed their bodies, reminded their bodies what rest and digest and safety looks like. And as that happened, the emotional release happened. And so for this client who had the chronic pain, she had this big emotional release where she cried out a few things. And guess what? The pain was gone, mashallah. Another client couldn't sleep, had an insomnia issue, was trying everything. She couldn't sleep without medication. She did HYE. Guess what happened? Her sleep patterns normalized. So there is a science to all of this. You may think like, Zaahida, how does this happen to these people? What jadoo is this? No, this is science, okay? And so when you really understand how, as a woman, this is very important because you as a woman are built very differently to a man, except that you are living in an environment and a world that's putting so much strain on you that you are expected to live like a man. And sometimes the men themselves are not taking responsibility and stepping up to the plate. So you're taking all of his responsibility on, which was what was happening to Maryam also. And so the key here is that the things that are happening in your body are not random. Your body is not broken. Your body is the opposite. It's actually a very, very intelligent mechanism that it's trying its best to keep you going and give you enough energy and life force to get through the phenomenal stress that you place on it. The thing is, we can't always run away from the stress that we have. You have a family and you have children and you have all of these things that create a lot of stress for you. So what is the answer? And as I told Maryam, the combination of the nervous system regulation in HYE, excuse me, and the boundaries work that we do in the reclamation is what allows you to bring yourself back to a grounded state. Because when you're in that grounded state and you're in rest and digest, something very interesting happens. When you're in fight or flight, you are using only one small part of your brain, which is your survival animalistic reptilian brain. And that brain is just like, it's the one that keeps you stuck in the loop of anxiety. It's the one that just goes, oh my God, not again. And you either are too exhausted to even address what's happening in the situation, or you're just in hypervigilance and you're like, no, it's not like this. And so you want to be combative with that person. You overreact. Or you go into fawn response, where like you go into people pleasing. Tell me what I can do. Tell me how I can make it better. And you're using you're using your brain in a very limited way. And when you use the HYE tools, and as I was explaining to Maryam, it takes 5 to 10 minutes daily, mashallah, and you retrain your body to create the state of rest and digest, because that's what it is. It's a state, and it's accessible to you right now if you have the right tools and you know how to do it. When you go into rest and digest, you actually use this area of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. And that area of the brain has expanded thinking and expanded solutions and can find new ways. And suddenly, in the same conversation that you've always had with your husband, or the same conversation you've always had with the child that's difficult, or the child that you're finding difficult to parent, or with an emotionally immature parent or an emotionally immature in-law, suddenly you're like, oh, I feel so grounded. How about I say this? How about I say that? And that just opens up a whole new situation for you. And then you combine with that the practical tools that you have in reclamation, where I teach you how to have the right boundaries with yourself first, and then how to work through your own ego stories, how to tune into your higher self and your intuition by grounding yourself in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do the muraqabahs there, and suddenly you are a maverick in your relationships. The relationships where you just felt like, oh my God, how are things ever going to change? And you're dealing with this chronic stress and you just feel so overwhelmed in your life, which I think a lot of women like Maryam feel in the, especially once you get to your 40s, like all the things that you have been running away from, all of the things that you've just been enduring and making sabr with, and I do sabr in inverted commas, because true sabr is not passive, it's actually action, but you're living the type of sabr that your mother lived. You saw your, and this is a really important part, right? One of the reasons I shifted reclamation, it used to be BR, and it used to be just about individual healing. And I transformed BR. I took all the parts of it that people really benefited from, and I upgraded it into something called the reclamation, which it currently is now. And it's a 1 year experience, 1 year healing experience, and coaching and mentorship from me. And in the reclamation, we now do generational healing, because this chronic stress pattern, this chronic pattern of having to be, take on everybody's burdens, be overly responsible, be hyper vigilant, be a people pleaser, that didn't just come from you. That was passed down to you from your mother, and she learned it from her mother. So when you're trying to break through these patterns on your own, the reason it feels so hard is not because you are not capable of doing it. The reason it feels so hard is because it is. It's not just your thing that you suddenly got out of nowhere. It was passed down to you. It's a generational legacy. And your mother and your grandmother and your great grandmother endured a lot of difficulties, and they didn't have a lot of resources, and they didn't have a lot of options out, and they had to survive and endure really, really difficult things. And you have learned that pattern. And on the one hand, may Allah bless them. They taught you how to survive some of the most difficult circumstances. The not so great part is there are circumstances that you are enduring that you could be approaching so differently. There are so many solutions available to you, but those solutions are not accessible to your brain right now because you are stuck in chronic fight or flight, in chronic stress responses. This is really the reason I created reclamation. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it's definitely fortunate. This didn't happen to me in my 40s. This happened to me at 25. I found myself at that crossroads of my body experiencing the toll of the trauma in my system, of chronic stress, to the point that I developed an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. And so at that point for me, it was literally do or die. I either changed my patterns, I changed how I showed up in relationships, I changed things where I no longer put myself last, but I actually had to prioritize myself and invest in myself and learn the skills that I now teach. And for me, it was not so easy because I spent years and years running from pillar to post, trying this out, trying that out, trying to find a way that way it works with my deen, and I'm not going outside of the fold of my deen. I had to do all of this. It was a many, many years of research, many, many years of trial and error. And Alhamdulillah, through Allah's mercy, maybe Allah put me through this so that I could then bring this to you. Through Allah's mercy, I learned these things and I implemented them. And guess what? Within a year, my body healed. I have been living symptom free for well over a decade now, mashallah. And people ask me how. And the specialist that I used to go to, sometimes he sees me out in public and he's like, "You okay?" And he's dumbfounded. And when I tell him it's this stuff, he's like, "Oh, okay." Because he knows how bad my situation was. This is not like a basic level of ulcerative colitis. I had a pretty bad situation. I looked pretty hopeless, subhanAllah. And I just thought to myself, something's got to change. I can't live like this. I can't live like this. And when it worked for me, and I saw how it worked for me, subhanAllah, I was like, no, like people need to know. And I started working with people first individually for quite a few years. And that gave me the opportunity, by working with that many people, it gave me the opportunity to customize this and see all the different situations people are in and the different personality types. Because if it was just copy and paste of what worked for me, that wasn't enough. It needed to work for a variety of people. And so I ended up working with thousands and thousands of women. And alhamdulillah, they experienced this too. And eventually, I started doing my programs here. One of the first programs, for those of you who are OGs, was first there was a new you, and then there was RR, which was Relationship Revolution, that people loved. But after Relationship Revolution, people needed more. They needed a more solid, practical approach to changing the relationships, because the Relationship Revolution was all about toxic relationships, how to spot red flags, how to deal with narcissists, how to deal with emotionally immature people. People found that very, very helpful. But then they said, but Zaahida, how do we create healthy relationships? We want to create healthy relationships. We want to have the right boundaries to deal with all those difficult people. But how do we deal with ourselves? How do we do it our own stuff, right? Because now, as I'm learning about emotional manipulation, all of these things, I realize there's red flags in me too. And they wanted to know how to create healthy relationships. And so BR was now the culmination of all of these programs and all of this years and years of work and all of this years and years of working with clients. And that evolved into Reclamation, which we have today. So you guys who are joining Reclamation now, and there's been quite a few of you, I have to put up a post to celebrate. Alhamdulillah, I'm so I cannot tell you what happens with me every time I see one of you join, because I know what's ahead of you. I had someone message me. She did my Reclamation. Well, she did why I was BR, and then she did the second round, which was Reclamation. And she messaged me today and she said to me, Zaahida, I didn't even think it was possible. She just had her second child, and she said the adjustment was huge for me. Last year, she went through a lot while she was in the Reclamation. She went through a lot. She went through her father being chronically ill and being in his last days and dealing with so much of childhood trauma related to him as well. And she said to me, I didn't think it was possible to just be so at peace and be so calm. And here I am living like that. Like previously, it would be a day or two, but it's been months. It's been months that I'm in the state. And now, even whilst having the two children, I'm ready to launch a new product in my business, because she did the Besharam trainings as well within the Reclamation. And I don't know, today when I was speaking to Mariam, it just reminded me how powerful this can be for people. And then this other client messaged me, and I could hear in her voice how much has changed for her. And this is really the reason I brought Reclamation forward. I wanted you guys to have access to the exact systems, to not spend years faffing around, years, like losing years of health, losing years of your life being what it can be, where even though, I mean, your stress is not going to disappear overnight, your problems are not going to disappear overnight, but when you change, and in Reclamation, that's what happens. You change a lot. You grow a lot. You grow your skill set. You become this person that can be grounded through anything. And through that, the situation starts to change. Last year, so when I look back, that year that I was diagnosed was one of the most difficult years of my life. And the few years that ensued after that were very difficult too. And it was not just because I was sick, I was actually dealing with a lot of trauma. I mean, it was not just that I was dealing with past trauma. In that time, I was being traumatized and dealing with PTSD and all of that. And my body was showing it. My symptoms were a sign of how much I had been going through and was going through. And I just didn't know the tools. Like besides running away from my life, which I couldn't do, I was having a baby, I couldn't run away from my life. I didn't know what to do. And subhanAllah, this work really saved me. Like I throughout that time, I prayed the tahajjud so much. I made dua so much, and I asked Allah for solutions. And then He sent it to me. And at the time, I didn't know what I was trying out. I even remember saying to myself, I'm going to try something every single month and just see what happens. Because somewhere along the line, if I keep trying, something's going to stick, something's going to help, something's going to come right. And that's how I stumbled upon the different modalities that actually helped me heal through Allah's permission. And last year, was a very, very difficult year for me, not physically, but something happened that really brought me to my knees. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to share it with you guys. I don't know if I'll ever be able to share it. It's not your usual run of the mill type of problem. And it was so hard. It was so hard, subhanAllah. And I have to tell you that if I didn't have access to this work, if I didn't have access to these tools, I don't know how I would have made it. Because Allah got me through, but these tools actually allow me, like it's what the combination of them, like a connect to Allah through it. Everything that you do in HYE and reclamation connects you back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so these are the reasons I'm so passionate about the reclamation. I'm so passionate about HYE. I'm so passionate about my programs. They are, I'm going to say it unashamedly, they are worth every cent. I honestly cannot think of something better you can spend your money on besides charity. Like they really are worth every cent. And I have invested so much into my personal growth, way more than what the reclamation HYE is. Like I have invested obscene amounts of money into my personal growth and my healing in the past, however many years. And I continue to like whatever, like if I feel like there's something that I can up level in, upskill in, I will still invest in it, subhanAllah. And that meant that I spent a good portion of my late 20s and my 30s investing in these things, using my money towards it and putting other things on the back burner, putting fancy things and nice cars and all of that on the back burner, subhanAllah. And I would do it all over again. Last year taught me, reminded me why it's so important. So with that, I want to announce, in case this is the first time you're hearing it, reclamation is officially open. The 2025 cohort is officially open. And we officially begin in Ramadan, but when you join, you get immediate access, and we already have live calls underway. And if you've resonated with what I've been sharing in this live, I highly encourage you to go and look at the link. I'm going to put it in the link in my bio, or you can just DM me here on Instagram and ask me for the link for reclamation. But I highly, highly recommend you go check it out because it probably will change your life. And if you've been seeking something that addresses everything, that helps you release the emotional baggage. And by the way, I didn't even talk about, we started with weight loss. I didn't even talk about how many women in reclamation messaged me to tell me that they've lost so much weight in the program without even trying. And a big reason for that is they drop the emotional weight of everything that they've been carrying. So their body now feels lighter, like it literally, you've let go of that. And because they're not chronically in a stress response, their cortisol levels finally come down and their metabolic rates and their hormonal levels start to normalize, mashallah. And because of that, the weight comes down. Leila, you can just drop me a DM and I'll send you the link. And I want you guys to know that there's a way forward. And this is why reclamation exists. And this is why I pour so much of myself into it. Recently I've been thinking about, should I just make it self-study and bring down the investment? But when you're in there, in that container and getting direct support from me and getting direct tailored responses to your particular questions, to your particular issues, when I customize a plan for you, for your to bring a lasting solution to the problem that you're having, I want you guys to have access to that. So this may be the last year. Honestly, I don't know how many years I can still keep offering the level of support that I do in the reclamation. And maybe next year I will decide to make it more self-study. Maybe there'll be less support. That's a decision that I'll have to make at that point. But for now, it is 1 year of support. It is 1 year of access. 1 year of access, not just to the modules and the muraqabas, which are subconscious rewiring tools that are based on the divine names of Allah, but also 1 year of access to me, to my community, to my coaching, to the live calls. We have Chai with Zai calls, which are coaching calls where you can be coached on anything. And you learn a lot from how other people are coached, and you learn a lot from the questions that they ask and the coaching they get. But we also have something called Nani's Chest, which is where we do generational trauma healing. So we actually look at your lineage and the generational inheritance you have in terms of the relationship patterns you have, and how to shift that, how to change that, how to heal from that, subhanallah. So reclamation is open for enrollment. At the moment, there is a bonus period. So DM me if you want the special bonus, and it might not be what you expect. So DM me. If you DM me, you're gonna get the real take on what the bonus period is. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or just send me a DM. My DMs are open for any questions regarding reclamation. I think I want to leave you with this. If you are a woman, you have been taught that your Jannah lies in putting yourself last. And that could not be more untrue. That could not be more untrue. One of the things that we lead with in module 1 of reclamation is he who knows himself knows his Lord. You were placed on this earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed you here, and you matter, and you are an amanat. Your body, your mind, your emotions are all an amanat. And it is your job to take care of them. And it's your job to ensure that you are well resourced to be able to live your life and live your relationships and have good relationships and create good relationships and maintain good relationships. And I can promise you that when you make that shift where you see yourself as important enough to invest in, every aspect of your life will get better. I guarantee you that. And I know this from the thousands of women who have worked with me, the hundreds of women who have been through my programs, now thousands of women who have been through my programs, alhamdulillah. That is how it works. 2025 is the year that you do that. And if you're deciding to do that, then reclamation doors are wide open. I'm ready to receive you. I'm ready to welcome you in. Send me any questions you have, or just take the link from my bio. Commit, join. We have, something I need to say is we have 12-month payment plans, but if you join as a pay in full, there's a very special bonus for you. And it's probably, like clients tell me, it's the best money they've ever spent. I'm not even going to be shy about that. This is not me boasting. I know it may sound like I'm boasting, but I'm being honest. It is probably some of the best money you will ever spend. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.